Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination, cultivating true contentment, the art of living a life of quality over quantity. Visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, at our simplified URL, tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com to find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From a Monday motivational post, recipes, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and readers' favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which is posted each Friday morning. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 357th episode of The Simple Sophisticate. Today joining me for a conversation about a best-selling new book is author Jenn Granneman. Her new book, Sensitive, The Hidden Power of the Highly Sensitive Person in a Loud, Fast, Too Much World, was released in February of this year and has become a bestseller in the category of popular psychology and success self-help. And it has recently been chosen by Amazon as an editor's pick in Best Nonfiction. If you are highly sensitive, in other words, you identify as being HSP, or you think you might be, or you love someone who is, but you may not be, this is the book and the conversation I think you will gain a lot of insight from. Jenn will be talking about a whole array of concepts that she touches on in great detail in her book, from the importance of valuing and seeing being highly sensitive as a gift, to knowing that you're not alone when, or maybe if, you were spoken to or treated as though it was something that was inferior or made you less than, which is absolutely not true. We'll also talk about romance. We'll talk about work and how it all pertains to HSP and can be turned into an awesome gift that will elevate your entire life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I want to get to our conversation. At the other end of our conversation, stay tuned as I have a handful of episodes you might want to further explore if this topic interests you. Here is my conversation with Jenn Granneman. If you know the acronym HSP, you already likely know my guest, a friend of the podcast, founder and editor-in-chief of the world's largest online community for introverts, Introvert Dear, and the co-founder of the online community for HSP, or highly sensitive persons, Sensitive Refuge. She is returning today to talk about her new book that she co-authored with Andre Solo, Sensitive, The Hidden Power of the Highly Sensitive Person in a Loud, Fast, Too Much World. Jenn Granneman, welcome back to the Simple Sophisticate.
Hi, Shannon. I'm excited to be here.
Glad you're able to join us. As I've told you in our conversations off a recording, I devoured your book and I've gushed on and on to you, but I really want to bring this to the listeners. I know many of our listeners identify as being HSP or know someone that they love that identifies as HSP. So first I want to begin with just that question, just in case someone doesn't understand what the definition of being highly sensitive person is. Can you define what HSP means for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, like you said, an HSP is a highly sensitive person, and about 1 in 3 people, or about 30% of the population, are considered highly sensitive. a lot of people have the wrong idea about what it means to be a highly sensitive person. They think it means you're fragile or you cry easily or you get easily offended. But really, we're talking about sensitivity as a personality trait. And as a personality trait, it means that you respond more to the world around you. You respond more to heartbreak, pain, and loss, but you also respond more to beauty and new ideas and joy. You might find the lights in a room to be too bright sometimes, or a siren going by to be too loud, just because your nervous system responds more to that stimulation. So, a highly sensitive person is often someone who needs a little more downtime than other people do, or a little more time to think and make decisions or respond to a question. But they can also be someone who's very outwardly expressive or not. And they can be someone who is very warm and caring and giving. A lot of times we think of sensitive people as a people person, right? Even if they're an introverted sensitive person, they have a way to connect with others because they're often warm and empathetic.
Thank you very much for giving us the overview of it. And I'll talk more deeply about what you just addressed there about the misconceptions, because that's important, and you do address that in detail in the book. I want to begin with the introduction of the book. I felt this was a wonderfully creative and inviting way to make it this more of a personal exploration of what highly sensitive is, because you and your co-author Andre Solo both identify as being HSP. And so the introduction is, as I mentioned, very relatable, because you both are addressing how you engage with the world in your early years, he as a male, you as a female, and how this showed up in your life, in our culture, both growing up in the United States. And I think that's important too, that you being a female, he being a male, being HSP does not discriminate when it comes to gender.
Right, yeah.
And that too is what makes this book so powerful. So how did this project that you and Andre created with the book and the blog Sensitive Refuge, how did this come to be?
So I learned I was a highly sensitive person years ago when I came across Dr. Elaine Aron's research about sensitivity. Andre did not realize he was a sensitive person until much later in life, until he and I met, actually. And together we started a website called Sensitive Refuge because we thought it was important to get the word out about sensitivity and to provide resources and a community for sensitive people, because there just wasn't something like that out there to the extent that we wanted to see. I've been wanting to write a book about sensitivity for a long time, just because I started a blog called Introvert Dear. I wrote a book about introversion, and I am definitely an introvert myself, and I feel like introversion really explains a big part of who I am. But I also feel like sensitivity explains a big part of who I am. And over the years, I came to see sensitivity as sort of explaining the other piece of the puzzle for me.
And I thank you for leading into my next question, because one of the you
You're
were
right.
reading, yeah. Well, I actually, it's lovely that you mentioned that, because I remember in our conversation. So, for those of you that are new listeners to this show, Jenn was a guest back in 2017 to talk about her book, The Secret Lives of Introverts. And this is episode 171. And in our conversation, I remember you saying, I want to explore this idea of sensitivity. I don't exactly remember your words, but I remember thinking, woohoo, she's done it. She's done it. Because I was thinking, I need this place. I need whatever she's going to create. And I know many other people are grateful that you've done it too. But right out of the gate, in your introduction, you talk about how sensitive, the paradox, and I love this paradox, sensitive is strong.
Yes,
It is not a weakness.
absolutely.
What do you mean by this? How possibly, in our misunderstanding of this term, sensitive, how can it be strong? What does that mean?
Like I said, a lot of people think sensitivity is a weakness. They think you're fragile. They think you'll break easily. They think you
Right.
aren't resilient to life's challenges. And that's simply not true. I think sensitive people are some of the strongest and most resilient people I know. Yes, we do feel things deeply. And yes, sometimes the world can be overstimulating to us because our brains are taking in so much information and doing so much with that information. But you have to be a really strong person to live life that way every day. When you're someone who's deeply impacted by the things around you, you have to develop an inner strength and resilience that maybe some less sensitive people don't have.
Well, and that's part of why your subtitle really lands, because there is a lot we're taking in there. As you said, we feel like we see it and feel it all. And your introduction, you introduced a gentleman. And before I share when he gave this speech, I want to talk a little bit about George Simmel, who was a German sociologist. So I just want to pull a quote from his speech that you included in your first chapter. So you introduced the German sociologist named George Simmel, who shared in a speech he gave in Dresden, Germany, quote, "Innovation had not just given us more efficiency, it had given us a world that taxed the human brain and its ability to keep up, describing a nonstop stream of external and internal stimuli in a loud, fast, and overscheduled world." And this is where it aligns with the awareness that addresses HSP indirectly. People have a limited amount of mental energy, and that a highly stimulated environment consumes far more of it because of this. Our spiritual and emotional side was absolutely spent. Now, this is what's interesting to me and I read this in the book. He gave this speech in 1903, not in 2023, 1903. So this is more than a century ago. Can you talk a bit about Simmel and what he is revealing here, and why our awareness of our world and how we engage with it is so imperative to how to live well as an HSP?
Yeah. So, what I found fascinating about that was Simmel had no idea what a highly sensitive person was. This was, obviously long before any research on the topic. And if you think back to what the world was like over 100 years ago, there was no internet, there was no social media, there were no podcasts, uh, it was a very, very different place. Yet he still found life, especially urban life, to be very overstimulating, especially to the point of where we would turn off our awareness or our empathy to other people just because it was too much. Like, how can you extend empathy and compassion and caring and awareness to every person you meet when there's just so much going on? And I mean, obviously, fast forward to today, and there is much more going on. And sensitive people aren't the only ones who suffer when the world is loud and fast and overwhelming. Everybody does, but I think it's us sensitive people who feel it more deeply. And I think it's also us sensitive people who are out there raising the alarms about it and saying, hey, we need to slow down. We need self-care. So I think there are really important lessons that sensitive people can teach everyone.
Right. And that this isn't a new feeling. This is
Right.
not something that we just came up with in the last, since Dr. Elaine Aron wrote the book
Right.
in the mid 1990s. This is in existence. It's part of our genealogy, as you talk about in the book. Um, I want to really quickly address the terms that are often thrown around to put down this idea of being sensitive. You talk about misconceptions and also the use of gaslighting to thwart or make us feel inferior. Different phrases such as being too sensitive, sensitivity being seen as a weakness, or being in the habit of overreacting, or being told to grow a thicker skin. Heard that many times. Or why can't you just let things go? Why are these things misconceptions? What's the errant thinking here?
Yeah, if you're a sensitive person, you probably heard one or many of those things throughout your life, unfortunately. Maybe when you were a child. Unfortunately, I think parents and caregivers often say those things to us, sensitive folks, wanting to, help us toughen up or develop some resilience. But it doesn't work. Or maybe unfortunately you've been said someone like a spouse or a significant other has said something like that to you, or a friend, anyone. And it's hurtful when those things are said. So, I like to say that the phrase "you're too sensitive" is actually gaslighting, because the other person is trying to tell you that there's a right or wrong level of sensitivity to be, and there's not. There is no right or wrong level of sensitivity to be. And really, that other person is trying to tell you that they know your reality and your life better than they do. And it might be a way for them to escape some responsibility on their part. Maybe they made a joke, or quote unquote a joke, right? I'm making like air quotes right now because We've all heard jokes that aren't really jokes, but maybe they said something or did something that was hurtful. And when you had a normal reaction to it, which was to be hurt, maybe then they pulled out the "you're too sensitive" card so that they didn't have to actually accept responsibility for what they did.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for what's the word I want to use? To not have to take on someone else's responsibility for saying, oh, I need to fix myself. No, you feel what you need to
Right.
feel. That is real for you. And I think that's important too. And it leads into my next question. I want to talk about, and you address this in the book as well, nurture versus nature. And, I used to teach AP language, and we would often have units. We would read a lot of nonfiction, and we would have one unit about that would involve talking about introversion, and then therefore we would talk about extroversion and ambioversion. And so then the conversation would come up about, well, what's the difference between personality that you've been nurtured to respond to your environment because of who is around you, versus nature, what you were born with different sensitivities or awarenesses or strengths, whatever it might be. And I like how you approach this in your book. Can you talk to us about what exactly is HSP? Is it a nurture, or is it a nature, or is it, and I'll let you talk about it.
Well, it's both, actually, which may not be the answer that people want to hear, but it's true. It's both. So if you're a sensitive person, to some extent, you were born that way. There may be certain genes that are associated with sensitivity. Scientists don't have all the answers yet, but there is a pattern of genes that is emerging that is thought to be linked to sensitivity. But also, your experiences in your life, especially your early life, can shape who you are. So, research has found that if you grew up in an extreme situation, so for example, maybe an abusive home, or on the other end, a very enriching and wonderful home, perhaps your sensitivity developed a little more or increased a little more, so that, well, if you were in an abusive situation, your sensitivity developed to protect yourself. Because if you are in a threatening situation, you need to be able to read the people around you and be very alert at all times. If you are growing up in a wonderfully enriching home, right? Isn't that the
Woohoo.
dream for all of us?
Yeah.
Can't say that was
Yes.
exactly me, or a lot of people I know, but hey, that's the dream. Um, you may have become a little more sensitive so that you could basically soak up everything good about your upbringing and really use it to your advantage. There's this idea that maybe it just isn't evolutionary, or I should say it this way. It might be a waste of time for a person, a child, to develop sensitivity if there isn't a big threat to defend against or much enrichment to soak up. With all that said, scientists do think that that underlying genetic pattern probably has to be there first. But of course, our experiences do shape and mold it a little bit. And then also our experiences as adults shape things too. A lot of people think, "Oh my gosh, I'm a sensitive person and I'm always going to be this way." And when they say that to me, I think they're often thinking of the challenges associated with sensitivity, and so they feel kind of doomed, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm always going to feel overwhelmed by my emotions, or I'm always going to feel overstimulated in life." Well, that's not true. You may always have some challenges related to your sensitivity to deal with, but you can grow with those challenges. And I know a lot of sensitive people who are living happy, thriving lives, even if they didn't get that perfect childhood environment.
No, and I that's what I love about this book. This book is partially, sharing with the reader, whether you know your HSP or don't understand the term but have tendencies, or someone who loves someone is trying to understand it. You're teaching us the term, but then you're also giving us tools and skills so that we can thrive and live the life that maybe we dream about or that we don't think we can. But as you just said, it's possible to turn these gifts into things that actually complement our lives and don't rather than stand in the way or become obstacles. Now, we're going to take a quick intermission. I'm going to introduce you to two sponsors. Now, on the other side of our break, Jen's going to come back and talk about a special gift that HSPs have, as well as how romance can work if we want it to as an HSP, and why it may not be working if you're HSP, as well as work and what the best work is for HSP. Plus, she'll share this week's petit plaisir. I'll be right back. Have you ever wondered why laundry detergent comes in massive plastic jugs? 91% of these inconvenient, awkward, heavy jugs end up in landfills and oceans, harming our planet and marine life. There has to be a better way. And there is. And it's not like we can stop doing our laundry. But this is where Earth Breeze comes into our lives. My new approach to laundry, and I have been using them now for a couple weeks, 3 weeks actually, is Earth Breeze laundry detergent eco sheets that look like dryer sheets. But they're not. It's a revolutionary liquidless laundry detergent that dissolves 100% in any wash cycle, hot or cold. No measuring, no mess, no heavy plastic jugs. Just toss the sheet in. It is so simple. It has simplified the process. It's cleaner. It saves more space. Earth Breeze has really made the whole concept of detergent better. The packaging is lightweight, biodegradable, and plastic-free, and it's great for all laundry lifestyles, even sensitive skin. Their eco sheets are hypoallergenic and dermatologist tested. And Earth Breeze is compatible with high-efficiency washers, gray water systems, and is septic safe. Most importantly, you will still get a powerful clean, which is why we wash our clothes. Earth Breeze is tough on stains, fights odors, and your clothes come out clean every time. As I mentioned, I've been using these sheets for 3 weeks. The quality of the wash is on par with my expectations, and there's no mess. The simplicity of it is just, it's like, why hasn't this been thought of before? Don't just take my word for it, though. You can try for yourself with their risk-free 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you don't like it, Earth Breeze will give you a full refund. No questions asked and no return necessary. As a simple sophisticate listener, switch from the old-fashioned goo to something new. Right now, listeners of this podcast can subscribe to Earth Breeze and save 40%. Go to earthbreeze.com/sophisticate to get started. That's earthbreeze.com/sophisticate for 40% off. Again, one more time, earthbreeze.com/sophisticate. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Bombas. Summer is better with Bombas. Their thoughtfully designed clothes make you feel effortlessly at ease. From breezy, tagless tees to second skin soft underwear to perfectly cushioned, sweat-wicking socks. As the weather gets warmer, Bombas is inviting you to get outside and find your outer peace. In socks, underwear, and t-shirts you can effortlessly move and relax in all season long. Bombas makes clothing designed for warmer weather, from soft, breezy layers you can move in with ease to socks that wick sweat and cushion every step. Socks and underwear and t-shirt are the number 1, 2, and 3 most requested items in homeless shelters. That's why for every comfy item you purchase, Bombas donates another comfy item to someone in need. They make thoughtfully designed better basics that keep you feeling your best all season long, on the trail, at the park, and in your backyard. Their no-show socks are made with breathable yarns for a barely there feel, plus silicone grips and a contour design to prevent slipping down or sliding around. I live in their socks, I truly do, for walking, for gardening, for just going about my errands. If I need socks, I have the ankle socks, I have the no-show socks, I have the calf socks, and for all the different things that I need to do in my life. And you all know I'm very active. Their socks make it comfortable. I don't even know they're on, but they do what they're supposed to do, and I can go about doing what I love to do. Bombas has a 100% happiness guarantee, which means you're covered for life. Reach out anytime to their happiness team for easy returns, exchanges, or replacements. So far, Bombas has donated over 100 million items, and each purchase adds to that impact. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, go to bombas.com/sophisticate and use code sophisticate for 20% off your first purchase. That's Bombas, BOMBAS.com/sophisticate, and use code sophisticate at checkout. That's bombas.com/sophisticate, code sophisticate. Welcome back. Let's get right back into the second half of my conversation with Jenn Granneman. So I have two different questions here. I'm going to ask the first one because we've been talking a little bit about childhood and how we're raised. And so for one entire chapter, chapter 8, I believe it is, you call it the sensitive child's, or excuse me, you call it the raising a sensitive generation. And one section is titled the sensitive child's secret advantage. My question is, what does this mean? And why is it important to know if you are raising a loved one, could be a parent, could be a grandparent, anyone who has, more intimate relationships with a young child, because they're not going to know their HSP, and you may not know for sure, but you see tendencies. What does this mean when you have a loved one who you think might have tendencies of HSP? How is this a secret advantage?
Yeah. So in our book, we talk about something that we've called the sensitive boost effect. And essentially, this means that the sensitive person takes any basic supports like therapy or, even just something as simple as journaling or a day of self-care,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or a supportive relationship. The sensitive person takes all of those good things and will go even further with them than a less sensitive person would. So, research has found, for example, that sensitive people who were doing marriage counseling were more likely to be able to save and repair their relationship than someone who was less sensitive. There was some other research too that shows that teenagers who were in an antidepressant program, so like a program to help them cope with depression and learn skills to manage their thoughts and feelings, those who may have been sensitive were the ones who were able to overcome that depression and cope with that depression over the long term, better so than those who were not sensitive. So basically, a little support goes a long way for the sensitive person. So I just think that's awesome. And I like to tell sensitive people, if you're thinking about therapy, if you're thinking about, any new thing that can be enriching, even maybe just taking a class or reading a self-help book or going out and trying to meet good, supportive, awesome people for your life,
There we go.
all of those good things are going to help you more than they would if you were not sensitive.
Right. Enhance what's already there and just basically nourish it and grow like a plant, just feeding it what it
Yeah,
needs. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, I want to talk about HSPs and romantic relationships. And I have a bit of a quote here I want to include from Dr. Elaine Aron. I thought your different insights that I didn't know that she had shared specifically, I was really appreciative of you bringing her in because she was my big aha when I read her book for the
Yeah,
first time. I
me
was
too.
like, oh,
I'm so grateful to her.
I know,
Yeah.
me too. But I know that a lot of people, especially myself, I can relate to this. You think, oh, relationships are just not going to happen for me. It's just there's too much that I know. But for anyone who's thinking, wait a second, I'm bound to make this happen, it's absolutely possible. And it's actually going to be amazing if you would like to pursue this route. So here we go. So you write that there is this dilemma for HSPs in this area of life, of our romantic lives. And often it is one of our biggest challenges. You also include the doyen, which we just talked about, Dr. Elaine Aron, who brought this HSP awareness to so many of us. And she wrote or shared, quote, relationships are generally less happy for sensitive people overall than they are for their less sensitive counterparts, specifically because HSPs reported feeling more bored and stuck in a rut in marriage, end quote. Overarchingly, you write in your book that, quote, one factor that stands above others when it comes to relationship dissatisfaction is that HSPs require more depth in their relationships. And without this depth, something will always be lacking for them, end quote. Okay, so all that may sound, as I mentioned, sound like finding and being one half of a fulfilling relationship for both people is nearly impossible. But, this is why I do appreciate your book. Again, you give readers tools for building a relationship that will be fulfilling, not necessarily for anyone, but being more conscientious about who we spend time with. So it's not about you can make a relationship work with anybody. It's about being more discerning in who you choose to engage with, number one. So bringing that awareness to this. But when we do choose to be in a relationship with someone, how to nourish it so that we don't slip into common feelings of boredom or being stuck in a rut. So here finally is the question. What is one or two key things HSPs need to do to begin to build healthy, fulfilling relationships if they want to be in one?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it might sound a little odd to say that sensitive people get bored more easily, right? We think of sensitive people as being really thoughtful and conscientious.
Yeah.
But, like Elaine Aron's research found that boredom probably stems from our need for meaning in our relationships. We want to feel connected to our friends and partners and family.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have those deep and meaningful conversations with them. That doesn't mean we have to talk about the meaning of life every night around the dinner table, right?
Right.
But we need to feel that there is a good amount of emotional intimacy and vulnerability and mutual sharing in our relationships. So the interactions need to matter to us.
Yeah.
Okay, so two things to help sensitive people in their relationships. Well, first of all, I think you touched on one already, which would be to just pay attention to the kind of people you're engaging with in the first place. I like to encourage sensitive people to always get into their bodies and see how they are feeling. So, how do you feel when you're around a certain person? Do you feel energized after spending time with them? Do you feel good and positive and happy? Overall, you should. Obviously, every relationship will have its ups and downs. You can't feel perfectly happy and good all the time. But overall, you should feel a good feeling in your body. And I know that sounds so simple and maybe overly simplistic, but for a long time, I went through my life just not even paying attention to my body and how it felt around other people because I was taught to be nice and kind to everyone and people please and never leave anyone out and never hurt anyone's feelings. Right. And,
Yeah.
and I think a
Yeah.
lot of sensitive people are in that position.
Yeah.
We feel strongly and we have strong intuition, but throughout our lives, we become disconnected from it. So we have to tune back in. And then I would say, master the art of setting boundaries
Yes.
because as
Oh,
a sensitive person, you need those healthy boundaries in place. And this is an ever ongoing project for me, right?
it's
Like
hard.
I am
Yeah.
still literally learning how to set boundaries right now as we speak.
Oh,
Um, so no one is ever perfect at it, but those boundaries need to protect your time and energy and emotional investment in a relationship so that you're not giving too much of yourself because we sensitive people we really love to give. We really love to give of ourselves. But, not everyone out there is going to be I hate to say it this way, but be worthy of what you have to give them
yeah.
because they might take too much, they might be toxic, they might be narcissistic or harmful to you in another way. So that's why those boundaries are really important to have in place.
Thank you for sharing two of those. And you in your book, listeners, she does go in to talk about how to help identify when you are engaging with someone who's narcissistic or toxic to differentiate the two. So I'll let you read the book to learn more. But this is a great introduction because you just said, and I think that's what's so hard about being HSP and setting boundaries is you pick up on all the signals the other person they don't want you to say no. And so you pick up on that energy and you're like, oh, I don't want to hurt their
Yes.
feelings. And so
Yes.
then you're like fighting your own feelings of what you need with making them
Right.
feel that way. And you're like, but I really
Yeah.
need this. And it gets easier with time. I will say that doesn't make it
Yes.
easy, but it is necessary. So thank you for reiterating that. Cause I think just hearing that from someone in your area of expertise will help people to say, I need this. I can do this. It's necessary.
Yes, absolutely.
This next question, when I first read this section, I chuckled only because it was totally the opposite of what we often see in books. So often we see books associated when they share details
Uh-oh.
about certain traits, what are the best careers for this particular person or that particular person with this trait? I love those questions. And of course, you're always curious, where do I fit in? Because if you're not sure, you want to find an answer. But, and I'm not going to give the answer. I'll let you give the answer. So I chuckled out
I know where
loud.
you're going.
Yeah, you know where I'm going. The question in your book in chapter 8 says, what are the best jobs for sensitive people? Can you share with us what the best jobs are?
I would be happy to. The answer is any job you want to do,
There you go.
period.
There you go. Why is that?
Because sensitive people can do any job. Right?
There you go.
That sounds, again, sounds very simplistic, but I think a lot of times we're looking for this career that will fit us perfectly. And I've had a lot of careers throughout my life. I know a lot of sensitive people too who have had different careers and worked in different fields. And there's never going to be a job that fits you perfectly. It might play to some of your strengths, maybe not to others. But sensitive people are incredibly adaptable and perceptive and insightful. So, really, they can fit in anywhere they want to. Now, with that said, there are probably some jobs that are not a great fit for a sensitive person. And that is something where there is going to be lots and lots of people interaction without breaks, or just a noisy or chaotic environment. Maybe it's really loud. Maybe it's very busy, like lots of customers coming in or students coming into a classroom with no breaks. I was a teacher for many years, so I'm speaking from personal experience here. Or, a lot of times it's the emotional environment that really matters to sensitive people more so than the actual tasks of the job. So if you have awesome, supportive coworkers, you might be able to tolerate doing a job that, maybe you wouldn't otherwise normally be drawn to. But let's say the environment is emotionally unhealthy or toxic or negative. That's going to take an even bigger toll on a sensitive person. And sensitive people really tune into other people. I like to say that other people are the brightest spots on a sensitive person's radar because our brains are wired to pay attention to people. So, that toxicity and negativity, that's really going to be poisonous to you as a sensitive person, more so than someone who's less sensitive.
Well, and you spoke to this. You've gone through a different, multiple or different careers, and you have more awareness of how you felt in those situations. You now are the creator of two very successful websites, one for introverts, one for HSP. We were talking before we started recording here that you're obviously very busy right now promoting your book. Congratulations, by the way, on its success.
Thank you.
Because HSPs are drawn to what fulfills us, what contributes something to the world, how does your career now, what you're calling, how does that align best for you? Because I would imagine this is, you're not, people aren't born going, I'm going to be a blogger and a writer about HS. I mean, how could we have known? But you trusted your journey. You trusted stepping forward. How does this align with what you and your strengths are?
I love my career. I love being able to get up and do what I'm doing every day. I don't relish every single task. Right. And there
There's
are
some have
days,
tos there, right? Yeah.
right. And I don't, there are some days I would just rather not sit down at my computer at all. But right,
Mini
that's
breaks.
how it's always gonna
Yeah.
go. Yeah, like we were talking before we actually started recording, it's a busy time right now for me to be promoting the book and doing interviews. And not only am I a sensitive person, I'm also an introvert. So those interviews and those promotional activities, that it takes a lot out of me. Like after this podcast, I'm just gonna go relax. I purposely tried to get all my work done this morning so that I could just be done after this podcast. And right, because that's what I need. I need to build in that time. So yeah, I've just been having to build in some extra downtime and just let some things go, just little things go that aren't going to get done. Um, which, can feel frustrating sometimes to not get those little things done, but you got to take that wider view. And some days I do it better than others, but you just keep trying.
Yeah. Well, and you bring a lot of awareness just by what you said there, that awareness that this is going to take a lot of my energy. And I think that's what's really important about someone who's HSP and introvert is the awareness of what is it that drains me, even if I love what I'm doing, because you're putting
Right.
out this work that you've spent years on. You want to do this, but you also know what it takes to do that. So it's this, okay, honoring, I need to put this out there, but I also need to take care of myself and to do it, not just say I'm going to push through. So you're modeling what you're talking about, and it ebbs and flows as far as our responsibilities that are more draining, and just to know that it's not forever. I think that's what's important for people to observe and hear here is that awareness. And I think that's the key of all of this. The ground roots is awareness. What is it that fuels me? What is it that drains me? Why am I doing this? Is it for me or for someone else or whatever you want to, whatever you learn in your self exploration?
Yeah, and I will add I'm not perfect at it, and I have had moments where I've pushed myself and then said, "Oh, why did I do that?" So it's a learning process.
It's a learning process. We're all growing. That growth mindset is part of it too. Thank you, though. I mean, you're showing your humanity, but at the same time, you're also giving us so much value and expertise, Jen. I really, like I said, grateful for this book to be out there. You write in the book that this book is for three groups of people. Can you share with us who those three groups are and why it's important for potentially each group to get their hands on this book or to at least have the opportunity to gain this information?
Yeah, the first group is somebody who already knows they're a highly sensitive person. Maybe yeah, right. Me too. Um, maybe they read Dr. Elaine Aron's book a while ago and they've had that knowledge for a while. The next group is someone who doesn't know they're sensitive, but is wondering if maybe they are and maybe they would fit into this category. And then the other group is someone who knows they're not sensitive, but has a sensitive person in their life. I'm really hoping that people who aren't sensitive will also read my book because there's a lot to understand about us highly sensitive people. We can be pretty complicated sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true. I I I like this last chapter of the book. It's called The Sensitive Revolution, and that's why I feel like this book is so much more than just learning about it. It is sharing it with the world, trying to get rid of the misconceptions and demonstrate that there are a lot of different ways to thrive in this world, and we're not all going to act or engage the same way, but we can all contribute in an amazing positive way. So when you wrote this book, when you two sat down, what was your hope for how and why this book is being put out in the world?
Honestly, I hope it sparks a revolution. I mean, right? That sounds idealistic and grandiose, but I do hope it changes things for sensitive people. I hope that you can I hope that sensitive people can start describing themselves as sensitive, and that would be normal and accepted and people wouldn't look at you weird.
Right. As a
Right? I mean,
strength. Yeah.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
something to apologize for.
Right.
It's so
You know, I
true.
as I was writing my book, people would ask me, "What's your book about?" And I would say, "Highly sensitive people." And a lot of people would know what that was, but most people wouldn't know what that was. And so people would say things like, "Oh, thank goodness you're going to write a book to tell people to stop being so sensitive and grow up."
Oh,
Or they would say, "Oh, good, that's what our world needs right now. We're just too political and too easily offended." I was like, "No, that's that you're those are the exact misconceptions I'm actually trying to address."
right. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and I hope that more than just changing the way we talk about sensitivity, I hope that our workplaces and schools and social norms can start to not just accept sensitive people, but embrace them and
Right.
appreciate them.
Right.
And, I hope the world can become a friendlier place for sensitive people.
There you go. I think that's the key part there is this acceptance, this idea of differentiation that we just like we not all of us learn in the same way. A lot of us we all engage in the world in different ways, and one is not better than the other. Where we get our energy when we talk about introversion, extroversion is going to be different, just as how the world how we respond to the world because we can't not control what's around us. So how do we respond to it when the news, shows us this and the weather does this and our family member does this? Just because I'm reacting this way or responding this way to my family member doesn't mean my loved one will, or and that's okay. And not to say, well, like we talked in the beginning, why not to say, why are you being so insensitive or why are you being so sensitive, telling people to toughen up. That just completely dismisses who they are and what they can uniquely give. So I appreciate all the language and all the very layman's terms that you've used here, coupled with the research, because that too is where we go, okay, here's how I can explain it to someone. And if they don't believe the emotional argument, then logically they can say, oh, okay, this is where this comes from. And that's what I really appreciate about this. Um, as we wrap up, you know the drill here. We conclude with a petit plaisir. So I would love for you to share whatever you'd like. What is a petit plaisir, a simple luxury that you enjoy to elevate your everydays?
So I have recently started buying fresh flowers for my home. It started back when a friend gave me some flowers on Valentine's Day in a very nice vase. And of course, the flowers died and I had to throw them away. But I still had this lovely vase. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. I could just go buy myself some flowers. Like the Miley Cyrus song, right? I can buy myself flowers.
Yes, I love that song. Good point.
So I have been almost every week. I've just been
Oh,
getting
God.
flowers from the grocery store and putting them in that very lovely vase on my kitchen table.
Oh, I
And
love
it's
it.
really nice. It just makes me happy. I completely agree with that concept
Yeah.
because we do just need to find little things that make us happy in life.
Yeah. Bring a little bit of alive or life to our houses. And then you have it coupled with the vase, which was given to you out of from a friend. So there's a double meaning there for you. I love it. Beautiful. Thank you for encouraging readers and listeners to do this. I've had more listeners go, I would have never bought myself flowers until you started posting about it. I was like, it's such a simple thing, but it really is powerful, as you
It's
just
so
said. It really, I mean, I'm
nice.
sitting here looking at a vase right there. It's like, sometimes I move my flowers around the house with me. So it's like I'm in the office, so it's in the office. And then I'm in the bedroom and I'll put it in the
Oh,
bedroom
I've done that
because I can't have
too.
multiple all the time. So I'm like, you're just going to travel with me because
Yes, I have done that too. I love it.
I love it. No, thank you for sharing that. I have a feeling there'll be many more vases with flowers in houses after this
Great.
episode. Listeners, Jenn Granneman's new book is Sensitive, The Hidden Power of the Highly Sensitive Person in a Loud, Fast, Too Much World. It was released this past February 2023 and is out now. Be sure to explore the companion website, Sensitive Refuge, a site that I regularly pull links from and share on the weekly this and that I've enjoyed. I want to thank you very much for writing this book, Jenn, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure.
I want to thank Jenn again for the time she gave. When I learned of this book, I was just overjoyed that it is finally out there in the world, that we have a resource, the world has information based on science that validates but also provides guidance and resources and ideas and specific tips for how to really embrace this amazing gift. It is not something to hide or be ashamed of. It is not something to use as a crutch. It is something to elevate the quality of your life. And if this episode spoke to you, as I mentioned, Jenn's been on the podcast before, and I just want to give you the information again. You can listen to her talk about introversion in episode 171, The Secret Lies of Introverts was the title of her book. And you can also, if you want to explore deeper into HSP, the most popular and most downloaded episode of this show is the episode that was produced and shared during the first year of this podcast. And it's episode 44. It's titled The Many Gifts of Being an HSP. And I have oodles and oodles of specifics, and I talk about each one of them. And it's all inspired from the first book that Dr. Elaine Aron wrote. She was the individual who coined the phrase HSP that was mentioned in our conversation a couple of times today. Her book is the catalyst, is the inspiration for episode 44. And it continues to be a favorite of listeners and readers. And then I actually then kept exploring Elaine Aron's books, and she wrote a book specifically about the highly sensitive person in love, and that inspired episode 315, Being in Love, Being HSP, and Being at Peace with Ourselves and the One We Love. So if you want to dive deeper into this, you absolutely can. And those are some episodes 171, 44, and 315. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And I'm so excited. Our third episode of this month. So normally we just have 2 new episodes, as you know. But British Week kicks off this Sunday on the 21st on the Simply Luxurious Life blog. It's the 5th annual event. It is the second most popular event of the year on the blog. And 2 new posts every single day for an entire week will be shared, celebrating all things British. One of those things is a brand new episode, and it is an episode for anyone who wants to talk about style, who wants to talk about aging well, who wants to talk about beauty, who wants to make every year better than the last. I am so excited to be able to welcome to this podcast the fashion director of the Times London, Anna Murphy, to this show. She's going to talk about a new book that just came out in the UK and will be coming out. So it hasn't even come out here in the States yet. But I had an opportunity to read a review copy, and I immediately knew if I could get her on the show, I wanted to do that. She is going to be here to talk about her new book, and so much that I think this audience is going to enjoy. Next Wednesday on the 24th of May. Do join us. Thank you for listening today. Bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, with the shortened URL tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, pick up my new book, which became both a bestseller and #1 new release in France Travel, The Road to Le Papillon, Daily Meditations on True Contentment. Available in all 4 formats for your preferred reading or listening. My first book, titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and my second book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, are also available in each of the 4 formats. Readers can now join the more intimate The Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which offers the benefits of ad-free reading site-wide, unlimited access and exclusive access to content on the blog, such as the monthly A Cup of Moments with Shannon video chat, tours of my home Le Papillon, the monthly What Made Me Smile post, and monthly Ponderings post, as well as the exclusive opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during the annual French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, the cooking show, and receive exclusive news, as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart each new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free monthly newsletter, arriving on the last day of each month in your inbox. There is also a weekly newsletter, which is also free, and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cuppa or cup of morning coffee, and stay in the know about all things simply luxurious. Look for 2 new episodes of this podcast on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of each month. And until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Thank you for tuning in. Bonne journée.